For example, there are proofs that there are family members of branches of government that are in more than one branch of government, and they have relationships with people in other branches of government. And the difference of that as value as they have been taught about it, like the separation of powers. This is more so about what both nature and what our founders communicated. But both what nature and what our founders communicated to us is being and has been replaced. So, for example, they have the names of the people of the sciences, including comedians, dishonest with the most critical subjects, like black people's whites of eyes. Therefore, black or white. Everyone's leaving the breaching method out and forcing that left out, changing and faking our words as collusion too slash collusions with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime with the news at the same time, with crime scenes and names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. The only three branches of government clearer than day, originally and still. They can't afford American history understood. The simple principles about it. What witch trials are about, which is about simultaneously those crazy fact cheating, nature, torture, extortion, slavery laws that were entrenched against everyone, sickly and distinctly. No one had free speech. Our founders did not have free speech. They declassified this to us. Everyone changes and fakes what others say. The nature of debate, just because someone's wrote a book, or is a doctor, etc., and wrote a book. We're not examining the actual premises. When did they not have collusion /S? Especially the doctors on reason. Black pupils. Here, see whites of eyes, none can. Or they are sensed. That body is sensed, including if that body is a majority of people, including it is every single person at the same time. The breaching method adapts. And what that caused too, it functionally uses everyone blaming other things, others, ourselves, and the rules with it, blaming other things, others, ourselves, exactly the way it needs to hide behind that hyper additionally too, because nature increasingly is demonstrating to us a human fact cheating nature breaching method is a scientific value, with reason proper, with passions and emotions, for example, regarding what people believe, and they want to debate what they believe or not. Other sides of issues. They're changing, faking what we say. We would have this cleared up long ago. There are predicate acts with facts are stacked upon, concentrated on the people sickly distinctly at all locations /S. Hyper additionally too, based on the breaching method's use /S of how nature system works with difference. Therefore, names, and with its identity of relativity to everything, /hyper relativity to everything, not just at every place but other places. In other words, the whole ocean is reported to is demonstrably it's polluted because of criminal foreign influences, including legal ones that are not legal. But there's a quality of free speech for offensively forsaken. Connecticut prisons have rules, for example, like with all kinds of crimes and criminals and crime scenes, all natures of even body dumping spots, and then forcing all natures of criminals to hide life progressions, including there are proofs too also. They have unmarked police forms that they put into prisons, and they arrest people by putting charges, all kinds of predicate acts methods I recorded, not trying to. I recorded it in a way that hyper evidentially before we could all observe this. And these are people with Connecticut involved with the World Trade Center attack. Increasingly, the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and the corrections offices through administration since I was a little kid and since before everyone was born. There are proofs. Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut has rules of the method /S of predicate acts with facts with people at locations and the exceptions to that and next to them, and or that body is sensed. Again, even if that body is a majority of people, even if it is everyone, which is also relative to an answer where how everyone could be motivated to dishonestly sense for a breaching method if someone uses short words properly regarding what nature demonstrates to us about the law. Nature teaches us about the law. It shows us there are other species bodies. There are fish. There are fish with with two eyes that looks almost exactly like ours. Fish, birds, even bugs have consciousness to an extent shared with us, an extent of the ability to communicate with us. An understanding of some things just instantly together. Nature is showing us it is not our identity that invented that. It is not the other species body. It is that further hyper-simultaneous. And it's to an extent we could discern. But where there's an extent we could discern of it with any subject, and that's the value of any subject, its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that are three ways equally increasingly as value. The subject, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that. Its identity relationship to itself, I mean the identity of all space/existence. Also, it being existence distinctly from how it is space. And the slash part is in there too. It is three distinct identities, are parts of its complete identity. Just like the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, /S. And it's in reception of gases in their mixture and its relativity to the plant life, for example, positive or negative. And the water in its elements coming through too. The cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, /S. And the walls are connecting the water and the gases coming in and out. We are seeing the hyper invisible but still discernible that comes with the invisible but still discernible, simultaneously coordinated by that hyper invisible but still discernible. That's what's coordinated where we see. It's a hyper correlation that comes with the correlation we are given with the, everything has its body. The identity of all space/existence will only stay equal on all parts of space nature, positive and negative, but it's a quality of diffusion here with Earth, our own value concentrated. Identity relationship to its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that, where is a method of differentiation as a quality of diffusion, where it is a quality of diffusion, where it will only stay further positive onto itself here, relative to and as, to, from, as, with, and for Earth's a special difference, our own, or it will force it from here. Leaf of Hadith, forced space nature transfer, is more probably what ancient pantheism had taught this as. Being led by the one identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. And its method. And God is a God variable. There are proofs that it was a God variable. And that what is now Boolean logic is simultaneously half preservation, but half collusions against its preservation. That of algebra. And the sciences share an identity. And that's what English was revealed to teach. But by countries together, before countries became criminally foreign influenced. When you hear about the history of England, and the history of the different countries, they have left out how everything was. It forced, checked, hurt, and persuaded people to defend themselves as fact cheap nature from what they didn't know how to respond to syntactically properly. And so they did the best they could, and then they defended that. And then that was exploited also by a breaching method that used physical, hyper-criminal foreign influences, I'm going to call it. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers, all sides of criminal and civil cases, they've been framing issues and they've been collusions with predicate acts, with facts, methods, various natures of organized crimes originally instilled for what forgiveness is for. Not to give up, not just for this, but also to not leave out the human fact, human nature breaching method. Again, that is a scientific value demonstrated to us by nature, but also by our founders. But also it is recorded that our founders' communications regarding this are replaced. And roles with this are self-value, reliant upon the motivations, narratives, and natures of the names of the people and sciences, including the sports, including comedians. They have roles with news, predicate acts, with facts, methods, where the right to lie was and is used where they don't have the right to lie. And not just as collusion/S, but also with the breaching method that also has use of that singular collusion and of the grouped, and the simultaneous chaos of everyone together agreeing to self-value, formal syntax and convictions in nature, and the difference between overt criminal enterprise and private, a whole bunch of different countries, insidiousness of people A through Z. In other words, changing and faking what others say. Otherwise, it would have surfaced how we all believe things like we have black people's whites of eyes. We have nature's identity itself we can discern. We can discern that the words of nature are being and haven't been replaced. All excuses for it come with demonstrations of that being used to screen. Use/S of it, not just the places and ways we know everywhere, at all locations/S. But that was his collusion right there, with the difference of there, or right back at all locations/S where no one wanted collusions since they first started having to respond in some ancient times. More and more having to self-value groupings and individual uses of individual names, even selves names, as the phenomenon of countries' names, or of individuals, or the names of the people of sciences. Tactical ulterior from what could defend that and afford to be, let alone to protect the quality of fact shaping nature necessary to be able to even speak, have free speech, to even demonstrate the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positives and negatives, forced ignored, because there are remote uses and collusion/S with that, including with the motives with that, including ones that are real. They come with also being and having been self-cultivated roles with that propagated since before modern religions as uses of the breaching method having affected to fact human nature responses to predicate acts and facts and methods of them at locations, areas, and states of the human species body, where then they responded to it and then had to defend that. They didn't realize they would simultaneously more and more being capable of defending that and of affording nature's demonstrations understood and valued, where we are syntax nature, therefore function. Nature, and I'm using the word nature for identity, because part of our identity is completed by the identity of all space/existence. But we only have a portion of that, the slightest portion of that we can discern it from. But it's inseparable from all things and all parts of all things. So it stays increasingly functional. How it is distinctly hyper invisible but still discernible, and inseparable from all things real and or made up. But all things real too that are invisible but still discernible, like the parts of speech, of English grammar. The sciences share this identity The English was revealed to be teach about how it is functional, that is hyper invisible but still discernible. Through administrations, the nature of debate regarding the integrity of what agencies in that or what person in that, and with the responsibility of guilt, that's used to sense for the breaching method. Not just other countries listening, and the same problems there too. That breaching method set up things like criminal foreign influences propagated by itself. All self-cultivated roles not fathoming. A through Z. That's how they have the suits and ties. The exceptions and the counters. When they debate issues, speak about like economy. They have to, their logic and nature, to defend it, they have to self-value the words, the communications of America's founders and about James Madison's plan, his agreement with George Washington. They have to self-value that being, haven't been used remotely, haven't been self-valued, replaced as collusion/S, as motivation narratives for real motivations, like what they wanted to be. Well, I work at this college and these people are the experts on that, or I'm the expert on that, as American history. See, science is sharing identity. And the predicate act can be used to discern the invisible/hyper invisible, not just criminal insidiousness nature, but hyper criminal insidiousness nature, not just criminal foreign influences, but hyper criminal and foreign influences, not just extraterritorial use/uses of all locations/S everywhere the human species body has a body standing. All aspects, positive and negative, about those locations. To use tactical ulterior from how nature needs us to appreciate. Nature shows us the difference between criminal and insidiousness natures and positives. Nature shows us how the arrays of subject treatments how it's gotten away with. Weird how we all know that we can see in other words. But we have to address the collusion/S with people pretending that the name, just the syntax of the convictions and the exceptions, treatments or non-treatments, and the nature or the nature of the names of the people of the sciences is worth what it is not. And or research. One needs not, one needs to have black pupils, whites of eyes. And just walking around experience to be able to prove wrong. And criminally foreign influence use/S of all kinds of readings of statutes and precedents and laws. At the same time, distinctly multi-front too. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, where it is roles too, collusion/S, where there are subject treatments, increasingly incapable of affording discern. How nature shows us to appreciate. In other words, fact treatment, nature, quality aspects of nature, mandated law. So separate me from the fake conversations with Connecticut's Channel 3 News about the World Trade Center attack. They attach me to fake conversations with themselves and with others with the World Trade Center attack. There are people from a whole bunch of different countries who are collusions with them before and after they did that, as one's interstates and intra-cities. There are proofs intra-state, too, of New York and of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. also has people involved with various natures of media and news. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a licensed journalist. In other words, this is intercampuses through time, though. They have been switching and forging names into branch as people with collusion/S with the other natures of sciences and the people with the networks and the difference of the collusion with the intelligence there, the security there, or the ones next to them, who are also collusions with the FBI and other agencies and foreign and domestic military. and all kinds of natures of federal criminals associated with Sandy Hook campuses, including a prison campus there, involved further with people tied to the name O'Brien and Adam Lanza and medical people associated with him. A bunch of people with the campus of Harvard Hospital. Its Institute of Living is on the campus of Harvard Hospital. It has roles with the intelligence communities, foreign and domestic, and their security and their lawyers and their campuses and their family members, including those of judges associated with them. We have probate court judges involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes and delusions relatives, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, and worse than criminal incompetence roles and organized crimes roles, where and how they have roles with the answers to where and how other things, others ourselves, stay blamed so long, even though we all know that's happening. They're changing and faking what people say, including online, digitally recorded. And then they're just pretending they perceive hate. They're calling in attacks on themselves. Remote use /s of their differences interbranch physically, sexually, religious spots, neighbors, concept, care for each age, and sacrifices they believe are legitimate for each age. They have collusion /s with that torture, extortion, slavery method that is distinct from everyone else's roles, and the overt criminal enterprise and the private ones and the terrorists at the same time. There are time collusions, and with the news. There's a nature of criminal insidiousness forced here. Criminally foreign influence, factory nature, quality aspects in nature, and exceptions roles. Tell all those people to go get a job in New York City. How many jobs have been involved? Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rot, scams, and collusion /s, all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and styles. You guys had replaced what nature itself and what our founders communicated for you to capable to be able to speak about when you were kids. In other words, certain type of examples, and the comparisons, they're never going to be honest. There's all kinds of organized crimes and uses of them that this breaching method showed. Our own at countries A through Z. They need to show other people how they can collude with themselves. We're the peak identities of expert, proper knowledge, and what we should love is used remotely. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. We should love most how it is functional, how it is hyper invisible, but still discernible. Distinct identity of value / value progression, inseparable not just from all things, but all from all parts of all things. Finite, grouped, and simultaneous / hyper simultaneous. For how it is functional, showing us how it is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible. So in other words, please, someone get Judge Napolitano informed, because there are proofs that the agencies and the courts and foreign and domestic, they have been changing, including the internet companies. Facebook has a Joshua Julian who's on YouTube too, with a bunch of other people, with also Anthony Yagman involved with a whole bunch of doctors at Harvard Hospital that are foreign and domestic, through time, intercities and intra-cities, involved too with my high school algebra teacher with the name Riley, Miss Riley, who repeated sexual things about my neighbor with a Mike Domain, who confirmed collusion /s with her right in front of my algebra class. In other words, I didn't respond to it years ago, but it's increasingly being brought up. And because of her roles too, increasingly with more people, with retired police chiefs, with principal child defenders, and child abusers, leaders of kids. Intercities also same ones with religious spots and names next to them. And it's manifest that way in ways they don't even realize because of remote use /S of all locations, not just criminally foreign influenced, but hyper criminally foreign influenced. It's important that you guys don't change and fake what I say. WFSB has roles with them. Connecticut's Channel 3 News. Increasingly, there are people with the name Mendez at Wethersfield Police Department involved with identity theft, frauds, fake conversations with me that weren't at all when I was a kid there and as an adult. As people, including and people with the name Mendez and tied to them, involved with the Saudi attackers and with Americans' roles at the same time with a whole bunch of different countries, criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, because there is another involved. Increasingly, people at the World Trade Center in Manhattan and spots next to it, like a Scalora, and people with the Ninth Circuit Court right before the attack. There were police at all the spots involved with the people internationally, intra campuses, predicate acts roles, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with names next to campuses, including next to Harvard Hospital. People that say that they're their cousins. Interbranch Connecticut has been switching and forging names with the FBI and foreign and domestic intelligence, including military cover-ups. People increasingly tied to a Mazzucato bakery, where they were in Hartford and where they are in Wethersfield. Rocky Hill. Years before they were there in Rocky Hill, they're involved with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield at that corner, involved with the people with the name Cololo, involved with the wire crimes of the Wethersfield police, and mail crimes, falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Their roles with judges and prosecutors, family members, planting evidences with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and next to news at the same time. I never went downtown Hartford with Ray Cololo, my neighbor, who came to my grade when I was in fourth grade. I never had a class with him at my grammar school. Increasingly, people tied to him are involved with where he moved from too. Involved with three spots at the end of the Borough Turnpike, and exceptions to that, like a elderly home with my past neighbors too. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by police, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to collusions with them against themselves too, with reported arrests of them and the motivations for it. And their roles with Trinity College too, with Joshua Stryker, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidence that were timed collusion /S with people at the state judicial branch offices and next to it, and between campuses. Increasingly with people that planted evidences with former mayors, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, putting fake things at locations, spreading rumors between campuses and with people that don't even know each other, and who are also having roles pretending other into databases at each of the campuses we go, where we're not even in the same class as those people. We don't know who they are. They're pretending passions and emotions into databases to pretend fake exceptions, fake motivations for it. As people increasingly involved are interbranch families with a whole bunch of different countries in ways they don't even know the extent of. They're just glad they know they have reasons they have to hide that. Like their roles, all these different countries in the news, including the ones that are killing and torturing, extorting each other. Increasingly, all kinds of or natures of organized crimes are self-valued, and they pretend it's legal because they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes in Russia and in America. And they have natures of use of location /S, like roles with psychiatry. Increasingly, people involved with Russians in Ukraine and their doctors and their roles with Hartford Hospital campus, involved intercities with other campuses, all ages and natures, involved with drugs and medicines, crime, tactical delusions, suits and ties, counters, exceptions as collusions. The suburbs look exactly alike in America to Russia to Ukraine, because the breaching method was entrenched right through our founders' lifetimes. They communicated about the people self-valuing their words, leaving out what they declassified about that, pretending it's debatable what nature shows us about that and about what motivated. They're pretending that right where they were forced to say nothing and to entertain. Everyone had to entertain their own syntax or what they didn't say too. Employed as roles with the breaching method, where everyone would hurt each other, torture each other, extort each other, enslave each other, syntactically, and while pretending other. Psychopaths. When we examine the laws and the syntax of the names of the people of the sciences, they are being used remotely as psychopaths. And they're getting away with it by making people angry, for example, and then lying about what they think about their motivations for it. Like people who I asked many times, you guys, get the interbranch. The only 3 branches of government in Connecticut, they've been stacked in predicate acts with the people intercities and inter and intra campuses doing it there too. That's why they won't identify themselves since I was a kid, legitimately since I was a kid. Increasingly, these are people involved with corners of streets. The FBI is leaking their roles with a Joshua Stryker at Trinity College involved with predicate acts with people from other countries, and as the ones involved with untimely deaths, and people from other areas with the houses in my area, with the people tied to them that were trying to put fake ties to me because they already had that pretended in databases in the past. Because in other words, I can show how that was motivated. One shouldn't have to beg to get them on paper, one name and sequence, and to not have our words changed and faked. Regarding World Trade Center predicate acts, like the WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. Also, their collusions are being recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They bring up other subjects and roles with other natures of organized crimes. At the same time, they knew they had roles with various natures of abuses of children, of elderly. There are proofs with veterans' homes and next to them. These same names are involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, at and next to corrections offices, at and next to the judicial branch offices. They're apparently confessing and demonstrating, and demonstrating that they have some kind of relationship with Weathersfield Avenue, where in town lines, associated with a whole bunch of people tied to a former police chief, Centron, and 1 years ago, involved with their intimate ties too, involved all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidence crimes on my street, as their roles with all kinds of falsified police reports through time. They have connections between each of them. And U/S has roles with the ones intercities and intra-cities, and then in the World Trade Center attack involved. And since it, too. In other words, WFSB has much to confess with Fox News distinctly. But at WFSB and WTNH, more so WTNH's sources. In other words, there are more confessions that the people with the campuses made. Also, when they were putting fake things in the news stories and their motivations. In other words, they're changing and faking what's actually digitally recorded, and they're putting fake transcripts into databases at courts and at police stations. As timed collusion /S with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones, and with their sexual groups and differences, and with the religious differences, their narratives by culture, recorded involved with rackets by that, where how everyone keeps roles, preventing free speech of others and pretending other, enforcing the nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature clearer than day. Criminally foreign influence as criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness. I'm not even a lawyer, and that's not even a legal term, but we're gonna have to make it. One. Boxing is fun. Please, Judge Napolitano. There are proofs that they changed and faked and hid things from you that were typed on your Facebook page. If it was things and you say, "Well, I saw it, but I didn't respond because of this or that," this came from before the World Trade Center attack. This is a method recorded with database identities of relativity to ourselves since before computers. Please respond, Judge Napolitano. You're missing it. Everyone will agree with me too. Everyone had this scam on them at every campus, distinctly too. And the difference of that is maintained by it. Self-use/S by the people. They need to be taught how to think properly. And we're going to do it here, black peoples. I'll see the whites of eyes. Attend, discern.